Imagine reaching into an old box of coins, finding a large, silver-colored piece that looks completely ordinary at first glance, and then discovering that it carries the name Indochine Française and the date 1926. Could this mysterious coin be worth far more than its original face value? Today, we are traveling back nearly 100 years to examine one of the most fascinating coins connected with French colonial history, the French Indochina Piastre de Commerce from 1926. This is not simply a piece of old metal. It is a historical object connected to a period when French Indochina was an important center of international trade, commerce, and cultural exchange in Southeast Asia. The 1 piastre was a major silver denomination, and genuine examples can attract serious attention from collectors. But there is an important warning before we go any further. Not every coin that looks like a 1926 Indochina Piastre is genuine. Replicas, altered pieces, reproductions, and counterfeits exist, and some can look surprisingly convincing. That means the first question should never be, how much is my coin worth? The first question should be, is my coin authentic? The story of this coin begins with French Indochina, a colonial federation established by France in Southeast Asia that included territories corresponding to modern-day Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. During this period, the piastre became an important monetary unit used throughout the region. The French Indochina Piastre was designed to function not only as currency, but also as a practical medium of commerce in a region where international trade was developing rapidly. The 1926 date places this particular issue in the 1920s, a fascinating period in the history of the region. On the coin, collectors will typically notice the large central denomination reading 1 piastre, while the design communicates both the identity of French Indochina and the monetary authority behind the issue. The reverse and obverse designs are full of historical details that make the coin especially attractive to collectors of Asian coins, colonial coinage, silver coins, and world currency. Holding a genuine example today can feel like holding a tiny piece of a much larger historical story. One of the first things that makes the 1926 1 piastre so interesting is its substantial size and silver appearance. Genuine French Indochina piastres from this era were associated with silver coinage, and that precious metal component gives them an intrinsic appeal beyond their historical significance. But this is exactly where collectors need to be careful. A coin being silver-colored does not automatically mean it is made of silver. Counterfeiters have produced pieces using base metals, plating, or other materials designed to imitate the appearance and weight of genuine coins. Some replicas are openly sold as reproductions, while others can unfortunately be presented as authentic pieces. Therefore, if you have a 1926 1 piastre sitting in a collection, an inherited coin box, an antique cabinet, or an old family collection, do not immediately clean it, polish it, scratch it, or attempt to alter it. Those actions can reduce collector appeal and potentially destroy important evidence that a professional uses when examining authenticity. Now let's talk about the details collectors should examine. Start with the date. On a genuine 1926 example, the numerals should have the correct style, proportions, spacing, and placement for the issue. Look closely at the lettering around the coin as well. Details such as Indochine Française, Piastre, and the denomination should have a consistent appearance. Experienced collectors often become familiar with the exact fonts, shapes, spacing, relief, and design characteristics found on authentic examples. Counterfeits may reproduce the general appearance correctly but fail in small details. A letter might be too thick, a numeral might have the wrong shape, or the relief might appear unusually soft. None of these clues alone proves that a coin is fake, but several unusual characteristics together can become a major warning sign. Remember, a counterfeit does not always look obviously fake. Some of the most dangerous counterfeits are the ones that look convincing from a distance. Another important clue is the coin's weight and dimensions. Genuine coins were manufactured according to specifications, so an authentic example should generally fall within expected tolerances for weight, diameter, and thickness. This is why a simple digital scale can be useful as an initial screening tool. However, weight alone cannot authenticate a coin because counterfeiters can sometimes produce pieces with surprisingly accurate weights. A coin can have the correct weight and still be counterfeit. The same is true for diameter. Think of measurements as one part of a larger investigation rather than a final answer. Collectors should compare their coin with reliable references, and when necessary, have it examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. If your coin is unusually heavy, unusually light, significantly different in diameter, or behaves differently from a known genuine example, that deserves further investigation. The next thing to examine is the surface. This is where your coin's condition can dramatically influence collector interest. A heavily worn 1926 Piastre may still be historically fascinating and potentially valuable, especially if genuine, but a sharply detailed example with attractive original surfaces can be much more desirable. Look at the highest points of the design and see how much detail remains. Examine the fields for scratches, dents, cleaning marks, corrosion, discoloration, or unusual texture. Be especially careful with coins that appear unnaturally bright. Some people believe that making an old silver coin shine will increase its value, but collectors often prefer original, undisturbed surfaces. Cleaning can leave hairline scratches and an unnatural appearance that may reduce desirability. So if you discover one of these coins, resist the temptation to make it look brand new. Its age is part of its story, and its original surface may be more important than its shine. There is another fascinating question surrounding the 1926 1 Piastre. Why can two coins with the same date and denomination have dramatically different market values? The answer is condition, authenticity, rarity, variety, eye appeal, provenance, and collector demand. One worn example might be relatively affordable, while a scarce variety or exceptionally preserved specimen can command a much higher price. Auction records can sometimes create sensational headlines, but collectors should never assume that every coin of the same date is worth the highest amount ever reported. A spectacular auction result generally represents a particular coin with a particular grade, condition, rarity, and buyer demand. It does not establish a guaranteed price for every 1926 Piastre. If you see an online listing claiming that every 1926 example is worth thousands or even millions, be extremely cautious. The exact coin matters. And then we reach one of the biggest mysteries for collectors: the possibility that the coin in your possession could actually be a replica or counterfeit. If your example was purchased inexpensively from an unknown seller, found in a mixed group of foreign coins, or advertised with dramatic claims but no reliable authentication, you should investigate before assuming it is genuine. Look for casting seams, unusual surfaces, incorrect lettering, strange relief, suspicious edge characteristics, or measurements that do not match known specifications. Some counterfeit pieces may also have a grainy texture because of casting methods. Others may have unnatural wear patterns. But once again, these clues should be treated as warning signs rather than absolute proof. The best approach is comparison with authenticated examples and examination by someone experienced in world and colonial coinage. A professional opinion can turn a mystery into a documented collectible. The edge of the coin deserves special attention too. Collectors sometimes focus entirely on the front and back and completely forget the edge, even though the edge can reveal important manufacturing clues. Examine it carefully under good lighting. Look for unusual seams, filing marks, tool marks, strange lettering if applicable, or a texture that seems inconsistent with genuine examples. Compare the edge with photographs or an authenticated coin whenever possible. Also pay attention to the overall strike. Genuine struck coins often have a characteristic relationship between the relief, fields, rims, and edge. A replica produced using a different manufacturing process may have subtle differences. These differences can be difficult for beginners to recognize, which is why authentication is especially important when a coin appears unusually valuable. Now imagine the story behind a genuine 1926 French Indochina Piastre. This coin was created during a completely different world. Cars were becoming more common, radio was transforming communication, international trade was expanding, and colonial governments were issuing currency across territories thousands of miles from Europe. Somewhere in that world, a coin like this could have passed through the hands of merchants, workers, travelers, shopkeepers, or financial institutions. It may have been carried through busy markets or stored away in a cash box before eventually disappearing from circulation. Nearly a century later, it may emerge from an inherited collection or an old drawer on the other side of the world. That journey is part of what makes historical coins so compelling. Their value is not only measured in money. They can also preserve a connection to people, places, economies, and events that would otherwise exist only in history books. So if you have a 1926 French Indochina Piastre, what should you do next? First, do not clean it. Second, photograph both sides and the edge in clear natural or neutral lighting. Third, record its approximate weight and diameter using appropriate tools without damaging the coin. Fourth, compare the design against trusted numismatic references and authenticated examples. Fifth, if the coin appears promising, consider getting a professional authentication or grading opinion. And most importantly, do not let an exciting internet claim determine your expectations. A genuine coin can have meaningful collector value, but the actual market price depends on the individual specimen. If your coin turns out to be a replica or counterfeit, that does not make the research useless. It simply means you have learned something important about the world of numismatics and the challenges collectors face. And that brings us to the real treasure hidden inside the 1926 French Indochina Piastre de commerce. Maybe your coin is a worn survivor with an interesting history. Maybe it is an attractive collectible with strong original details. Maybe it is a scarce variety that deserves professional attention. Or perhaps it is a modern reproduction that looks impressive but has little value as an original coin. Whatever the answer, the investigation itself is part of the excitement. A nearly century-old coin can make you stop and ask questions about where it came from, who used it, how it survived, and how it traveled through time to reach you. If you enjoy discovering rare world coins, old silver currency, colonial coinage, unusual mint issues, and hidden numismatic treasures, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And before you spend, sell, clean, or throw away an old coin, take a closer look. Sometimes the smallest details can reveal the biggest story. Just remember, rarity must be proven, authenticity must be established, and value must be based on the actual coin, not an exaggerated headline.